Hello and good evening. This is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel from YouTube, where we talk all things social studies, geopolitics, short form content, long form content, all that great stuff. We talk social studies, social sciences. We have live streams every Friday and Saturday, as well as on Sundays, a lecture format. And there's daily content updating. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are doing our first ever screencast, and we are looking at the U.S. presidential election for 2024. Now, usually on this channel, I focus on social studies and history, but I knew in July when President Biden dropped out that this would be a historic election. Now, of course, President Biden won back in 2024. If you look at the actual results on that election, it was a close election, surprisingly close, but President Biden did indeed win that election, 306 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 232. Now, in July, President Biden, following a lot of questions about his age and ability to continue, dropped out of the presidential race, and this left a vacuum in which Vice President Harris stepped up to the plate and became the first woman of color, which is historic in and of itself, to be nominated for president by either major political party. She was already the first female woman of color vice president and the first person of color to be vice president, and she has a very good chance at becoming the first woman president and the second person of color to become president following Barack Obama. So I knew election was going to be historic. I knew that Donald Trump, seeking to become only the second president after Grover Cleveland to win two non-consecutive terms, was also a historic way. So I started doing political analysis, try to be as objective as possible about all of those issues, and so I found it really fascinating, and a lot of people like to do videos on the internet where they go over maps. These are the actual results from 2020, for instance, and I wanted to make my own map today and share it with you guys as my formal prediction of what will happen tomorrow during the presidential election. Now, I'm trying to do this as a historian based on historical data and things like that. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that I'm going to vote this way or that way, and my prediction is not meant to be an endorsement of anyone. You've got Kamala Harris, and she's got the blue states, and Donald Trump will be in red, as is done in the United States. 538 is the total number of electoral votes available, so 270 to win. And so there are states in the United States, for those of you who are tuning in from all around the world, which I really appreciate. And if you really like learning more about history and social sciences and things like that, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. I'm trying to get to 6,000. We're at about 5,300 subscribers right now, trying to get to 6,000 by the end of the year. Like this video, subscribe, get notified, all that great stuff for my content, as I'm trying to do more long-form content and more screencasts. However, so in the United States, we have blue states and we have red states. So blue states reliably vote Democratic. Red states vote reliably Republican. So that is how it works in the United States. So there are some states that are guaranteed to vote for the Democrats no matter who, and the Republicans no matter who is running. So in the United States, I'm going to fill out those states, and we call those safe states. Those states the candidate is going to win by at least 15 points, if not a lot more. So Kamala Harris is guaranteed to win the popular votes in states like Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. Where else? And of course, the Northeast, not New Hampshire. We'll do that one later. But she's favored to win in Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey. Maine divides its delegates, so she'll win the first district overwhelmingly in Maine. She will also win the state of Colorado by an overwhelming margin. So these, and as well as Maryland and the home state of President Biden, Delaware. Her home state is California, by the way. She is from what's called the left coast or the west coast. Washington, Oregon, and California all vote reliably Democratic. So no matter what happens, Kamala Harris is going to win these states by at least 15 points, or maybe even double digits. She will also win the 3 electoral votes belonging to the District of Columbia. The number of electors, the founders set it up, is based on the House members plus the number of senators. So Colorado has 8 congressional districts and 2 senators, so it gets 10 electoral votes. So she's almost halfway there. She has to get to 270 in order to win. She's under 100 by that. So these states are all going to go for her by overwhelming margins. Donald Trump also has safe states that will go for him no matter what. And that includes states like Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Nebraska. Nebraska also divides it up, and Trump will easily win the first district in Nebraska, as well as Nebraska's 3rd district. South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, kind of have to pause on Missouri a little bit, and Utah. And that's the safe states for Donald Trump. So he's going to win these states basically no matter what happens. Some of them might be a little bit closer than others. Some of them might be surprisingly close. But Donald Trump is going to win these states. So it really comes down to all the states left in the map and how they're going to vote. And I'm basing my prediction on polling I've seen, early voting data, the different political arguments, the strategies of each campaign, where they have campaigned, what polling has said what. Oh, and by the way, I missed one. Harris will win this home state of former President Barack Obama, Illinois, the former state of Abraham Lincoln, by an overwhelming margin. But this is all based on, obviously, their particular, what the campaigns have been saying. These states are going to go for them no matter what. These states left out will probably, maybe, leaning or kind of a toss-up tilt towards the other candidates. So I'll show you how that works in just a second. So we're going to start with the likely states. We started with Harris's safe states, so we'll start with the likely states. These are states the candidate will win with a margin of between 5 and 15 points. We'll start with the likely states for Donald Trump. The state of Alaska, he'll probably win it around 11 or 12 points. It's a state that has been reliably Republican for a long time, but is becoming more and more Democratic. They only have, you'll notice they have 3 electoral votes, so they only have 1 House member, and that House member is currently a very popular Democratic congresswoman who has helped shift the state more and more to the left. They have a senator there who is very popular, Lisa Murkowski, and she has refused to endorse Trump. So there are other states that will be like, so he will not win it as much as Republicans are used to winning it, but he'll still win it probably by early double digits, like 11, 12, a baker's dozen, stuff like that. Trump is also probably going to win the state of Texas by a likely margin. This state has been getting closer and closer. This idea of Blue Texas has been popular amongst Democrats for a long time. It is the second biggest state in the union. It is the fastest growing state in the union, along with Florida. And Democrats believe that they can make this state competitive. However, it looks like Donald Trump is on his way to win this state by between 5 to 8 points, maybe even a little bit more. But that's what's going on there. This one is interesting. Trump is also slated to win the state of Iowa. Iowa voted for Barack Obama twice, and then by big margins, 9 and 8 points respectively, voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020. In 2020, people believed that the state of Iowa was going to be very, very close. If you look at the 538, which is a common pollster, if you look at the 538 polling average, Trump was only up by 1.3 points, but he ended up winning it by 8.2. So a recent poll came out that had Harris actually up 3 points in Iowa, which made a lot of Republicans really, really nervous, feeling that Iowa, which has become more and more Republican, would not be safe for Trump. But Trump should probably win here by maybe 7 or 8 points, around the same margin he won last time. Another state that Trump is slated to win by between 5 and 15 points is the state of Ohio. Now, this one's really interesting. Ohio, when I was growing up in the early 2000s, was the major swing state, okay? So that was the one that everybody fought over. And let me show you what I mean by that. If you go back, 2020, Trump won it by 8. Once again, the polling averages, which have been off and often have underestimated Trump in many ways, only had him winning by half a point, about 0.6. But if you look at past elections and you go back in the history, you see that Ohio has determined the winner most elections. Trump won it in 2016. Obama won it by about 3 points over Mitt Romney in 2012, and Obama won it over John McCain in 2008. In 2004, George Bush won it, as well as in the year 2000. So this has been one of the most important states in the union when it comes to deciding the president, and no Republican has ever won the White House without winning the state of Ohio. If a Republican loses Ohio, he doesn't get elected president. So fortunately for Trump and the Republicans, Ohio has been shifting more and more to the right. It has gone more, people have been leaving the state. There is a rising tide of white rural voters and working class voters who have swung ever since Trump came on the scene to the Republican Party, to have swung going from being more blue-collar Democrats to being more conservative Republicans, at least in Trump's style. So Ohio will probably go for Trump, probably by about 8 or 9 points. Most of the polling seems to suggest that. And if the polling underestimates Trump, like it did, once again, in the past, if you look at going back to the 538 projection, they only had Trump winning by 0.6, but he ended up winning it by 8 points. And of course, they also only had him winning Iowa by 1.5 points, and he won it by 8 points as well. So Iowa and Ohio were surprising swing states that Trump won the first time against Hillary Clinton. Another likely state for Trump, this is interesting. This state used to be the big swing state here in America. That's the state of Florida. Oops, I went too far. Did it again. Yeah, that is the used to be the big swing state, 30 electoral votes. It, of course, was most controversial in the year 2000 when President George W. Bush barely pulled off the win. Look at that, 0.009. Just the smidgen, able to pull it out over Gore. The Supreme Court had to get involved, and look at how close the Electoral College was between the two of them. Bush, once again, getting just 270, just over a majority of the 538. And then ever since then, it's been close. Bush won it by 5 in 2004. That was pretty convincing. Obama won it by 3 in 2008 and by just under a point in 2012. Trump surprised everybody by winning it by a point over Hillary Clinton. Once again, polls underestimating Trump a lot, and then he won it by a solid 3-point margin. In the governor's race in 2022, Ron DeSantis, the popular governor of Florida, won by nearly 20 points. And Florida has shifted to the right as Latinos in Florida have become more and more conservative. So Florida, and people who have left New York and other blue states to live in Florida who tend to vote more Republican. So Florida definitely seems like a lock for Trump. He's definitely going to win there. It just will be interesting to see by how much. Can he double up from 3 points to 8 points to 6 points? Will he push it towards 9 or 10? Who knows? Will Florida vote to the right of Texas, which Texas has? That would be surprising to a lot of people, but we'll see. So those are the likely stakes for Donald Trump. He's very, very likely going to win these. It would be a fluke, kind of a big surprise if he lost one of those. Harris also has likely states. Not as many, and not as many electoral votes, but right now we're going to put the state of New Mexico. New Mexico is going to be likely for Harris. She's probably going to win this by like 7 or 8 points. This is a state that Trump has kind of flirted with. He even went to Albuquerque a couple weeks ago, did a campaign rally there. But in all likelihood, the 3 House districts, 2 senators, adding up to 5 electoral votes in the great state of New Mexico will probably go for Harris by 7 to 8 points. This is a state that Biden won by 13. It's been convincingly and reliably Democratic for a long time, and Republicans are just trying to expand the map. Biden won it by 10. He won it by 11. And I think Trump actually got really close, surprisingly got it close, 8 points. New Mexico used to be a swing state, but it has been solidly Democratic. Obama won it twice. First time he won it by 15 points. Bush surprised everybody in 2004 by winning it, but in 2000, and Gore barely won it in 2000. So that's a very close one. But it looks like it's shifting back to being closer. So Trump might get it within 5 or 6, but it'd be surprising if it got any closer than that. So that is a likely state for Kamala Harris. Remember, likely is between 5 and 15-point margins. And that's the popular vote in these states, by the way. Harris is also likely going to win the great state of Maine by maybe the most recent poll had her up by 11. She'll probably win this one by 10 or 11. Again, early tens, early double digits, and we can expect a pretty solid win from her. Maine is reliably Democratic, has one Democratic senator and one independent senator who caucuses with the Democrats. Maine divides up between 3 districts, and one of those districts is very solidly Democratic, the 1st district. Then the at-large vote will be likely, while the 2nd district will probably go to Trump by a likely margin. That's a rural district, very conservative part of Maine, and it's what's going to get him closer than usual. Maine went for Biden by 9 points, and Harris is polling about there, and Clinton barely won it. Surprisingly, Trump got very close in Maine and New Hampshire. Those are the 2 most conservative northeastern states. Most of the states here are solidly Democrat and will be so this year. Trump has tried to do some action in New York and New Jersey just to get Republicans more votes, maybe to win the popular vote, which he hasn't won either time. So we'll see what happens. Remember, in the United States, you can win the presidency without winning the popular vote because it depends on these numbers, these electoral college numbers. So Harris also has one more likely state for her. And that is the state of her running mate, Vice President. By the way, Trump's running mate is from Ohio, Senator J.D. Vance. Harris has a comfortable position in the state of Minnesota with her Vice President, Tim Walz, the governor there. So she will probably win this state by about 7 to 8 points, which is how Biden did. Trump almost flipped this state to himself in 2016 when he surprised the entire world by winning these 3 states that we'll get to later on. But Biden won this by 7. I expect Harris to win it by the same amount. Her vice president's from there. He's the popular governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Trump will also get a boost from Vance in Ohio, by the way. So that's what's going on there. Now we have, those are the likely states. So now it's 217 to 208. And this is where many people start to say, okay, this is where things are going to get kind of nervous and nerve-wracking. And you're absolutely right if you think that. Oh, Harris is also likely to win the state of Virginia. This used to be a big swing state, also a Republican stronghold. If you go back to like 2000, Bush won it by big margins. Obama won it by a solid margin, 6 points. That's pretty solid for a swing state. And then Romney got closer, and Trump surprised a lot of people by getting it within 5, but Biden won it by double digits, the first Democrat to do so since FDR. And people have been saying that Virginia is getting closer and closer. And I believe that. I think it'll be like 6 or 7, but I think Harris is going to be buoyed by a lot of people who live in the northeastern part of the state who tend to vote very heavily Democratic near Washington, D.C. These areas like Fairfax and Loudoun County, these are right on the border. I mean, look at these margins for Biden. Harris will probably do just as well with those types of voters. White-collar people who work for the government will vote heavily for her. So 221 to 217, this is where we are when we get to the states that really make up the difference. Now, I haven't categorized the state of New Hampshire. I'm going to switch back and I'm going to talk about the next category, and that's lean. And we're going to start with the leans for Harris, and the first lean for her is the state of New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire has been a big swing state. It is one of the critical early primaries in American history. It's only got 4 electoral votes, but because it's a key swing state, it's a small state that both campaigns have spent some time in. J.D. Vance was there just the other day. Harris has put money into New Hampshire and went to a big rally there where a lot of people were coming from Massachusetts to hear her speak. So, oh, by the way, I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to categorize Nebraska at large as safe for Donald Trump. We'll get to, and Harris is likely to win the congressional district here. This is the Nebraska second. So, like Trump will likely win Maine second, she will win the second congressional district of Nebraska. So, getting back to that, Harris is leaning with an advantage in New Hampshire. She is probably going to win here by somewhere between 3 to 5 points. It has been getting closer and closer. Some polls have it like a dead heat. They're more Republican-leaning pollsters, so we're not sure. Biden won, let me see here. Biden won by 7 points, and if you look at the projections for him, he was going to win by 10, so he underperformed once again. But if you look at 2016, this was a state that Hillary Clinton barely won. I mean, look at how close that is between Trump and her. And the projection was she was going to win it by 10. Oops. Can we go back to 20? Okay, never mind. I guess I can't go to the projections. Can I go to the polling average? Nope, never mind. All right, sorry about that. So, anyways, point being, Biden won it by 7. Clinton barely won it. Look at how close that is. It was one of the closest states in the union. And now Harris has a chance to win it. And she's going to win it, but lean states are very likely this person's going to win it. It would be pretty surprising if the other person won it. So she's probably going to win New Hampshire. She could win it by a likely margin of 6 or 7. That's what some polls have indicated. But I'm going to say she wins it between 4 and 5. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire just endorsed Trump. And libertarianism and kind of third-party voting, independent thinking is really popular in New Hampshire. They're an anti-war state. Trump has been very adamant about ending the wars, particularly the one in Ukraine. Harris has seemingly kind of tied herself to Biden's involvement in Ukraine. And so I think that'll help Trump a little bit, but I don't think he's going to win. I think she wins New Hampshire. So this is where we are. We've got everything categorized. I think I got everything now. We are now in the lean states. And I'm going to say there are former President Trump, there are 3 lean states. The first is the state of Arizona. Now, this is a state that used to be reliably Republican. This is the state of former presidential candidate John McCain. This state has been trending to the left with Californians and others moving in who vote more Democratic, and Biden surprised everyone by winning it last time by a very small margin. In 2016, Trump won by 4 points. The state has been trending reliably, if you look back, it has been trending reliably to the left. However, voter registration, early voting numbers, which usually favor Democrats, and all of those things have shown a steady lead for the Republicans. And I think the polling also seems to indicate that, and I think Trump is going to win that there. Now, by the margin he wins, probably 3 or 4 points, will help him a little bit. like the margins in Texas and Florida, and how close can he get in some place like New York? Something I maybe should have led with was look at how close the national election is. It's zero point 0.1 for Harris, and it just flipped. It was like 0.1 for Trump yesterday, but look at how close this is. None of these polls have anyone up by 5 or more. It's all a lean or tilt or tie. And Harris up by 4 is right where Biden was, 4 years ago. So, anyways, he won by 4.5 points in the popular vote. I think that shows that here. It does not. Oh well. So, anyways, so Trump has the lean advantage in Arizona. And he will probably, it looks like he's going to win the state by 3 to 4 points, maybe similar to how he won it the first time, although there are some polls that indicate that Harris will do better. It could get very close, but we don't quite know. Another state I'm going to say is a lean state for Trump is the state of North Carolina. And actually, I'm going to say that's the only other lean state for Trump. A lean state, again, it's about 2 to 5 points, 3 to 5 points. And it's going to be, and Trump won this one by 3 in 2016 against Hillary Clinton after Romney took it back after Obama had won it in 2008. But North Carolina has a Republican past, just like Arizona, and I think that gives Trump the advantage. So I think he's going to win there, and I think it's going to be by like 2 to 3, similar to his margin in his first one. He won by 1.5 points against Biden, again, talking about the popular vote in each of these places. So that is what's going on there. Now, the rest of these, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Nevada, which have a remaining 66 electoral votes, are so close that they are called tilt states. And we'll start with the tilt, and we're going to start with Harris again, and we're going to give her her tilt states. And I think right now, as it stands, she is going to win the state of Michigan by a tilt margin. She could win this by a lean margin. Tilt is usually 0 to 1% for some people, like 0.1 to 1%. I think she wins by about 1.5 points, because I say tilt is a minimum of 0.1 all the way till 2 percentage points. So that's a tilt margin. So she'll win the state of Michigan. Michigan is, of these 3 states, called the Rust Belt: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. It is the most left-leaning of the 3 states. In 2016, Trump surprised, that was 2012. So in 2012, Obama won Michigan by 9 points. He won Wisconsin by 7 and Pennsylvania by 5. In 2016, Trump won Wisconsin by almost 8, Michigan by only 0.2. Look at how close that is between him and Hillary Clinton. And he won Pennsylvania by just over 0.7. So very close margins. These 3 states typically vote together. I mean, you go back to 2000, you go back to Bill Clinton. You'd have to go back to the 90s to see the switch. In 1988, Wisconsin went to Michael Dukakis, while Bush won Michigan and Pennsylvania. But look, very different. And the numbers have changed because population sizes have changed. But ever since 1992, these 3 states have voted in unison. That might be different this year. In 2000, Biden won it. 2020, Biden won it by 3 points, as opposed to 0.6 in Wisconsin and about double that, 1.2 in Pennsylvania. So I expect Harris to win in Michigan, maybe by 1 point or 1.5 points, although Trump could easily win it. Trump has been doing pretty well. He's polling better than he ever has. Usually he's underestimated in the polls. Usually he's way behind, like I showed you earlier. If you once again look at the averages that was their projection. From 538, one of the top pollsters, that was their polling average. I mean, he was only up by 4 points in a place like Montana, which is a solid Republican state. He won it by 16 points. So the polling averages have always underestimated Trump. He was going to lose to Biden by 8 points in Wisconsin. It was 0.6. He was barely going to win Ohio. He won it by 8 points. He was going to lose Florida. He won it by 3 points. Polling always has underestimated Trump. Assuming the polling error has not been corrected, Trump might win states like Minnesota and New Mexico, but we don't know yet. So Harris, I think, is going to win Michigan by a tilt margin. I think she is also going to win the state of Nevada by a tilt margin, because the state of Nevada, although a state that is trending Republican, they have a Republican governor they just elected a couple years ago, and Trump got that state closer. If you look at, once again, you look at the past elections and you look at 2020, Biden won by 2.4, Hillary won by 2.4. If you look at 2012, Obama won solidly by 7 points. So this state has been trending to the right, and Trump has been part of that at least, or you could say he has. So I think Nevada's Democratic history will hold strong for it. If you look at Nevada, it's got 2 major counties Washoe, which is where Reno is, and Clark, where the great city of Las Vegas is. These places are very close. Biden won Clark County by only 9 points. These places have been trending to the right. Trump could win Washoe County. It all depends on the turnout in Clark, but reports I'm getting are that Democrats are very worried about Nevada. But I still think that based on Las Vegas, based on how democratic of a city it is in that area, despite Trump's gains with Latinos, who there are a lot of Latinos in Nevada, I think Harris pulls it out maybe by half a point. Okay, so meanwhile, again, this is razor close. It's a toss-up. That's why there's the toss-up category. And I could leave these blank and no one would blame me. Going to tilts for Donald Trump, I think that he wins the state of Georgia by a tilt margin. Georgia has been historically Republican, historically very Republican. And you look at McCain, John McCain was even able to win it against Obama. Romney won it by 8 points. Bush won it by double digits both times. Look at that, 16 points. And Trump won it by 5 points. And a lot of people started to wonder if Georgia was going to become a swing state, and it did. And Biden flipped it in the closest one in the last election. Very, very close between Biden and Trump. Atlanta, this area, I might be wrong about that, but you look at this area, I think this is around Atlanta and the metropolitan suburban area, has become increasingly Democratic. So Atlanta has become growing. Georgia is a growing state. And because of Atlanta's shifts and young people and ethnic minorities who tend to vote more Democratic here in the United States, Georgia is becoming more and more of a swing state. But I think that Trump wins it back. And I think he wins it back because the unpopularity of the Biden presidency, I think, has given Trump that advantage. I think that he is polling better than he has in the past. And I think he has appealed to a lot of issues there. That it's one of the most religious states in the union, even more so than Arizona or North Carolina, about the same. And I think that Trump appealing to religious values, talking about transgenderism and abortion, should get him an advantage here in Georgia. But inroads with African Americans and other minorities in Atlanta and those areas will help Harris a lot, as well as white women who have tended to vote more Democratic this election because of the issue of abortion. I think Harris will make big inroads compared to like 2016, but I think Trump flips back Georgia from the way Biden beat him. I think he lost by 0.2. I think he wins by like a 1.5, maybe 2 points. It's going to be close, and Georgia always comes down to the wire because the Republican builds a big lead, and then the Democrat chips away at it until they finally decide if the Republican has enough to hold on. Trump didn't have that in 2020, and it took days, obviously, with the mail-in ballots and the pandemic. We'll see how long it takes. It's supposed to be done early in Georgia this time. We'll find out tomorrow and maybe the days after tomorrow. So we're almost done, guys. I know I've been going on a long time, and I hope you've really enjoyed this. And if you have, please be sure to like and subscribe. Give your comments and feedback about how you think the presidential election is going to go, and we'll see if my prediction is hooey or not. 2 tilt states left. Now, there's Wisconsin, which generally has polled the worst. You look at the polling average from last time. Wisconsin had the worst margin. Biden won Pennsylvania by 1.5 points. That's a 3-point error. He won Michigan by 3 points. That's a 5-point error. He won Wisconsin by a point. That's a 7-point error, 7.5-point error, close to a 9-point error. So I really think that at the end of the day, Biden is not going. I think Wisconsin, as it did in 2016, if you look at the election in 2016, Trump overperformed mightily. Clinton was supposed to win by a lot more than that. She was way ahead. It was like 6 points, I think. So I think that Wisconsin generally underfavors Republicans. Right now, the polling is the best for Harris in the Rust Belt, even better than Michigan, which has surprisingly had some really strong pro-Trump polls. So I think this one's really just as close to a toss-up as possible. And if I had to go with my gut, I'm going to give it and the election to Donald Trump. I'm going to say that Donald Trump wins Wisconsin by like 0.5%, 0.4%. It's like Nevada numbers. And the main reason and Wisconsin is surprising. Wisconsin has voted pretty consistently Democratic since Joe Biden got elected. They reelected their governor in 2022, surprising a lot of people. They voted in a Democratic, liberal-leaning judge for their Supreme Court. But I think that Trump has an appeal in Wisconsin to those working class people that'll make it close in Michigan. But I think he does okay in Wisconsin. And I think he pulls it out, but it's so close. And a lot of people think that the bellwether, however, will be the state of Pennsylvania. And this is the one. So let's say Harris does win Wisconsin. Okay? It could go either way. And most of the rest of the states, even Arizona and North Carolina, could go either way. Georgia. But a lot of people on their maps, this is where they stop because they go to Wisconsin. They don't do Wisconsin first. They'll say Harris wins Wisconsin, or maybe Trump wins Nevada, because Trump could easily win Nevada. But let's go back. So let's say she does win Wisconsin. A lot of people think it will come down to Pennsylvania. This one is even closer in some ways than Wisconsin. And if you look at the polling data and you look at the voting data and you look at the discrepancy, Pennsylvania, the pollsters are more accurate than they are in Wisconsin, at least on the presidential level. Now, in 2022, the pollsters highly overestimated Republicans in senatorial and gubernatorial races. But the last time there was a presidential election, they underestimated Trump even worse in 2020 than they did in 2016, and that was with Trump losing to Biden. But it was supposed to be a blowout. The margins were not. It was a close. This is a close election. Okay. I think at the end of the day, I think Trump takes Pennsylvania too, just like he's going to take Wisconsin, and I think he takes it because of the Republicans. In Pennsylvania have done a great job. The Democrats had a 600,000 voter registration advantage 8 years ago. And I think the Republicans have chopped into that so much. They've gotten the Amish vote out, which isn't a lot, but the state was decided by 80,000 people in 2020. 80,000 people decided it between Biden and Trump. That's nothing. So Philadelphia and, of course, Pittsburgh, very, very liberal. But almost every single one of these counties, like Center and Erie, these are considered the bellwether. Whoever wins these counties wins the state. These counties, and even these really, really strong Republicans, I mean, look at this, 67%. That's just absurd. But look at Philadelphia. You go to Delaware, you go to Philadelphia County itself, 63%. These counties have all, almost without exception, shifted Republican. More Republicans are registering. They're getting more Republican data. They're becoming more Republican, or they're becoming less Democrat. And so I think that, along with Trump's ground game, the fact that the Butler incident was in Pennsylvania where Trump was shot, the fact that he had one of his biggest rallies ever there, the unpopularity of Scranton Joe, who is from Pennsylvania originally, Joe Biden, I think that Trump carries Pennsylvania, and I think it's, once again, I'd say 0.4, 0.5, just like Wisconsin is for him, and Nevada will be for Harris. So this is my prediction. I have no idea. I could be totally wrong about this, but this is what I'm going with, and I hope it makes sense to you guys, and we'll find out what happens. But be sure to like and subscribe, comment, give some feedback and some questions. I'm not going to be doing a lot more political content. It's going to be more historical stuff, but I will be doing another video where I look back on the election. I may be even doing a live stream tomorrow where I talk about the results and things like that. So we'll see what's going on. But this is the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. I hope you really enjoy it. Like and subscribe to become a friendly neighborhood historian. And I hope you all have a wonderful election day tomorrow. Take care now. Bye-bye.